Everyone seems to be operating under the assumption that Willow is simply keeping Drew alive because she is desperately waiting for Jack to deliver some magical blackmail material. The general consensus is that she is just buying time, playing a dangerous game of delay until she has the ultimate leverage to force his silence. But when I look at the screen, I see a glaring, massive plot hole in that logic. If her only goal was to permanently silence him and protect her own freedom, a lethal dose would have ended this nightmare months ago. I think we are all entirely missing the forest for the trees here. The real reason Drew is still breathing has absolutely nothing to do with corporate leverage or blackmail. It is entirely biological. Right now, the walls are rapidly closing in on Willow from every possible direction. Kai has astutely noticed that Drew is starting to regain his mobility. The paralyzing agents are clearly wearing off, and the physical restraints of his chemical prison are failing. Consequently, Willow is in a full-blown, undeniable panic, rushing to Nina and Jack to beg for that promised evidence to keep Drew quiet. Meanwhile, Jens is basically treating her house like his own personal villain lair, issuing orders and adding to her immense stress. But before we get swept up in the chaos of her current crisis, let us pause and look at the dark core of this entire hostage situation. Let us really examine the bizarre paradox of Willow and her supposed mercy. This is a woman who looked Drew directly in the eye and ruthlessly shot him twice in the back. She then proceeded to systematically inject him with paralyzing drugs for an extended period, keeping him a helpless prisoner trapped inside his own unresponsive body. That is a level of psychological and physical torture that borders on the diabolical. Yet, despite crossing all those horrific lines, she deliberately stopped short of murder. Why? When a person crosses the ultimate moral line into shooting someone, the barrier to actually killing them is already completely shattered. Think back to the sheer brutality of those initial moments. The contrast is absolutely staggering when you really break it down. On one hand, you have the violent, impulsive, and deadly act of pulling a trigger not once but twice. On the other hand, you have the cold, calculated daily routine of administering a paralytic agent to keep a man completely immobilized. If her only goal was to permanently silence him so she could continue her pristine life on the hospital board without consequence, why not just slip a fatal toxin into that syringe? Jens even explicitly offered to take care of the problem for her. He suggested eliminating Drew entirely, and Willow adamantly refused. This brings me to a theory that might sound a bit unhinged at first glance, but the more you think about it, the more the puzzle pieces snap perfectly into place. I strongly suspect that Willow is hiding a massive secret. She is pregnant. Yes, you heard me right. I believe she is carrying a child, and that unborn baby is the invisible biological shield keeping Drew alive. It is the only logical explanation that fully justifies her bizarre restraint. She is not keeping him alive out of some lingering sense of guilt or morality. She is keeping him alive because she fundamentally refuses to make her own child fatherless. Now, I know exactly what some of you are screaming at your screens right now. The timeline. Drew has been paralyzed and out of commission for quite some time. How could she possibly be pregnant and no one, not even her own mother, Nina, has noticed a single thing? Well, if you ask me, this is the soap opera universe. We have seen characters hide pregnancies for absurd amounts of time, fake their own deaths, and rewrite the laws of medical science before breakfast. A slightly stretched or hidden timeline is practically a rite of passage in this town. Plus, we cannot forget that they had a very active and complicated history right before the violent shooting incident occurred. Let us anchor this theory to a very specific, telling moment from recent events. Remember when Jens practically handed her a free pass to get rid of Drew forever? He offered to make the entire problem disappear with zero blood on her hands. Look closely at Willow's reaction in that specific scenario. It was not the reaction of a woman clinging to her last shred of morality. It felt much more like a visceral, protective, almost maternal instinct. You do not shoot a man twice and then suddenly find a moral compass when a mercenary offers to finish the job. You say no because you desperately need that man alive for a very specific, highly secretive reason. If this baby truly belongs to Drew, imagine the intense psychological warfare Willow is currently preparing to wage. We already know Drew is regaining his strength. Kai saw him moving his limbs. The clock is rapidly ticking down to the inevitable moment when Drew stands up on his own 2 feet and threatens to destroy her entire world, exposing her crimes to the police and ruining her life. What is Willow going to do when that moment arrives? She is going to look him dead in the eye and drop the ultimate paralyzing truth, revealing that she is carrying his child. If she plays that specific card, she instantly neutralizes him in a way that no blackmail material ever could. Drew is fundamentally a man driven by family, by a sense of duty, and by a desperate, inherent need to protect his own blood. Could he really bring himself to send the mother of his unborn child to a maximum security prison? Could he condemn his own baby to be born behind cold iron bars? Willow knows exactly how to manipulate his core values. Keeping him physically paralyzed was just phase 1 of her survival plan. Phase 2 is using his own child as a human shield to guarantee her permanent freedom. But let me stop right here and play devil's advocate against my own brain for a second. Am I giving Willow entirely too much credit here? Is it possible that she is really just terrified of a first-degree murder charge? Maybe she genuinely believed the paralysis would be completely permanent and she could just avoid the heavy, soul-crushing guilt of actually taking a human life. Perhaps her refusal to let Jens kill him is simply the panicked, uncoordinated flailing of a woman who is in way over her head and desperately does not want any more literal blood on her hands. Is it possible she is just improvising a truly terrible, messy plan? If you look objectively at her recent actions, that innocent panic narrative completely falls apart. This is the exact same woman who successfully and ruthlessly manipulated her way onto the hospital board, absolutely infuriating Tracy in the process. This is the same woman who is secretly harboring a highly dangerous fugitive in her home while simultaneously playing the innocent victim at the police station over a hit and run she is currently being framed for by Brooke, Lynn. Willow is not a helpless, naive victim of circumstance anymore. She is a calculating, highly adaptable survivor. She is playing a very long game, and a secret pregnancy fits her new, ruthless profile perfectly. But this is exactly where it gets incredibly interesting, guys. What if the baby is not actually Drew's? Let us pivot and talk about the other massive, dangerous wild card currently residing in Willow's immediate orbit. Jens. The man has been actively using her house as a safe hideout. He has been constantly issuing orders, demanding her unwavering compliance, and practically living in her shadow for weeks. The forced, intense proximity between these two characters simply cannot be ignored when we are analyzing her hidden motives. Think deeply about the intense, high-stakes encounters they have shared in the isolation of her living room. Jens is dangerous, unpredictable, and charismatic in an entirely toxic way. Willow is incredibly stressed, constantly cornered, and making a series of highly questionable, reckless choices. In this specific fictional universe, that kind of dark, secretive isolation very often leads to boundaries being crossed. If Willow is indeed pregnant, we absolutely cannot rule out the terrifying possibility that Jens is actually the biological father of the child. And if that is the case, the stakes do not just skyrocket, they completely explode. If Willow is secretly carrying Jens's child, she is sitting on a ticking time bomb of epic proportion. But she is also cunning enough to turn that exact bomb into a weapon of mass manipulation. Paternity fraud. What if her ultimate master plan is to pass Jens's baby off as Drew's? It is arguably the most diabolical, brilliant move she could possibly make to ensure her survival. She completely traps Drew with the immense emotional weight of a child that is not even his, forcing him to protect her while simultaneously keeping Jens in the dark or using the child to manipulate him as well. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated tragedy of Drew's situation if this dark scenario actually plays out. He wakes up from a chemically induced nightmare, having been paralyzed and utterly helpless for months, only to be hit with the overwhelming news that he is going to be a father. He sacrifices his righteous vengeance, his demand for justice, all to protect this innocent child. He lets Willow get away with torturing him, and he does it all for a baby that actually belongs to the very criminal who has been terrorizing the entire town. It would be the ultimate devastating victimization of Drew. And we must consider how this massive secret impacts the rest of the canvas. Nina is currently bending over backward, desperately using her growing connection with Jack to secure blackmail material to save Willow from Drew's wrath. Jack is putting himself at significant risk to pressure Drew on their behalf. They all genuinely think they are fighting a strategic war over corporate secrets and leverage. They have absolutely no idea that the real battlefield is entirely biological. If Willow's secret comes out, it will shatter Nina's perception of her daughter all over again, proving that Willow is far more dangerous than anyone realized. The tension in this storyline is rapidly reaching an absolute boiling point. Kai has seen the undeniable truth about Drew's physical recovery. The paralytic veil is finally lifting, and the illusion of control is shattering. Willow is quickly running out of time to rely on secret syringes and locked doors to keep her problems contained. She is going to have to play her final, most desperate card very soon. Whether the baby belongs to the man she shot in the back or the fugitive currently hiding in her house, this secret is simply too massive to stay buried for much longer. We are currently watching a masterclass in sheer desperation, and Willow is holding a hand that nobody else can see. But biology has a very funny, undeniable way of revealing itself, and you can only hide a growing truth for so long before it demands to be seen. When Drew finally stands up on his own 2 feet and confronts his captor, will he be met with a tearful apology, a vicious threat, or the shocking revelation of a new life? The clock is absolutely ticking loudly, and I have a sinking feeling that the real nightmare for everyone involved is just beginning.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.